Hi everybody. I'm going to talk about the 9 modal verbs today. Don't get them confused with the semimodals, which only follow some of the modal verb rules. What is a modal verb? Well, you know the modals in music: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian, depending on which note you begin with: C, D, E, F, G, A, or B. Luckily, in English, we don't have so many modes. We have only one, and it adds a dimension to an otherwise two-dimensional scheme. That is, if the first dimension is a simple tense, such as I am busy, and the second dimension is the perfective, such as I have been busy. The third dimension is I might be busy. If I ask you right now to tell me the 9 modal verbs, would you be able to do it? Here is a really easy way to do it. We have 3 M's, 2 W's, 2 C's, and 2 S's. So the 3 M's are must, might, and may. The 2 W's are will and would. The 2 C's are can and could. The 2 S's are shall and should. Will, when written or spoken, can be contracted to apostrophe ll. I will becomes I'll. And would can be contracted to apostrophe d. She would becomes she'd. Now, most of these modal verbs express different meanings, depending on the context, so you really have to understand the sentence, or the question as a whole, but I'll talk about that later. First, let's try to understand the rules, all of which apply to the 9 modal verbs. Rule number 1. After modal verbs, we place the infinitive, futeci, without to. I might have a party tonight. We can play pin the tail. Rule number 2. With modal verbs, there is no s in the third person singular. He must leave now. It might rain soon. Rule number 3. Modal verbs do not change form according to tense. There is no past form, no present, no future. You may go to Mars one day. You may have been there already. I wish I may, I wish I might. Rule number 4. We use modal verbs in negative sentences as we do with other auxiliary verbs, without the word do. Subject, modal verb, not, verb. You must not smoke. I may not graduate. The negative contractions are used often in spoken language. Might, might not, mightn't. Must, must not, mustn't. May, may not, no contraction. Can, cannot, can't. Could, could not, couldn't. Will, will not, won't. Would, would not, wouldn't. Shall, shall not, shan't. Should, should not, shouldn't. Rule number 5. In questions, modal verbs are used the same as other auxiliary verbs. Modal verb, subject, verb. Here are some examples. Can you help me? Will you phone him? Now let's talk about the meaning of modal verbs. There are degrees of possibility as opposed to improbability. Must or might. It must be raining. I hear noises outside. If so, the laundry might get wet. Would, should, can, could. If you went out in the rain, you would get sick. You should stay healthy. You can take medicine. If not, you could be hospitalized. May or might. I might get angry. You may get cooties. There are degrees of negative possibility as opposed to probability. You cannot get bird flu from a cat. If you get bird flu, you will not recover soon. If you exercised more, you would not get sick. You should not get sick if you exercise. If you apologize, I may not get angry. If you wear socks, you might not get cooties. There are also degrees of obligation, as opposed to freedom. You must take off your shoes in here. You should take off your hat as well. You can leave your socks on. You could remove your glasses. You may wear perfume. You might wear makeup. We also use modals for asking permission and light advice. May I go to the restroom? Can I sit down now? Could I have a cough drop, please? Should I turn left or right? Then there are degrees of negative obligation, as contrasted with permission. You mustn't miss another day of class. You cannot come late to class one more time. You shouldn't talk during the ceremony. You don't have to wear a tie to the ceremony. Well, that's all for now. I hope you've learned something about modal auxiliary verbs in this lesson. If not, why don't you watch the video again? See you next time.